cholesterol in the diet is so misunderstood, even by most of the dietitians and your doctors out there. And what happens is you disturb what's called the NAD-NADH ratio. When that ratio gets disturbed, a whole lot of downstream effects happen. The best peptides for joint health that we recommend a lot are BPC 157, and it was a really powerful and effective weight loss pill, but it was really quick.
Welcome to our Q&A highlights. Q&A sessions are recorded every month, and our enhanced members get an exclusive opportunity to ask questions from one of cellular medicine's brightest minds, Dr. Elizabeth Yurth. Get a chance to ask your questions by becoming our enhanced member at bli.academy/memberships. You also get access to our content library full of tips, articles, videos, lectures, previous live Q&A sessions, and more.
Cholesterol in the diet is so misunderstood, even by most of the dietitians and your doctors out there. The US guidelines for cholesterol are 300 milligrams, but frankly, it's just ignorant and ridiculous. And every other country has removed the limitation on dietary cholesterol. So cholesterol is really just this 27 carbon molecule that is one of the many organic acids in our body, but it's absolutely critical to life. Without cholesterol, you will die. Your brain won't work, your neurons won't work. And if anything, we're seeing, at least in our practice, an epidemic of people with too low cholesterol. So cholesterol that's been driven down by statin drugs or other medications that has pushed cholesterol so low that people can't myelinate their brain, they can't function, they lose muscle function. This is actually a critical problem. So cholesterol is only produced by animals. Plant cholesterol is called phytosterols. So when you eat plant type cholesterol, it's a very different type of cholesterol. We can eat cholesterol. So if you eat, you're eating cholesterol. But most, by far, of the cholesterol that you are getting systemically is what your body is making. It by far outweighs the cholesterol you could eat. And cholesterol comes in two forms, esterified and unesterified. Only unesterified cholesterol can be absorbed by the body. Esterified has this big side chain on it, so it makes it not absorbable. It's just too big. Basically, most of the cholesterol we eat is esterified, so it just passes through us. So I've sort of tagged on to Don Layman. He's a professor of food and science at University of Illinois, and he has spent the last 40 years, he actually was in agriculture, and they spent the last 40 years investigating the role of dietary protein in muscle protein synthesis. He, I think, is one of the world experts in protein. So let me tell you what he kind of has pushed on protein. So number one, first thing is we need a hell of a lot more protein than we ever thought. I'm pushing this to my clients. Protein is critically important. It's critically important to fat loss, to maintaining bone, to maintaining muscle. We know that muscle loss, sarcopenia, is a leading cause of aging. It's not just something that happens. It's a cause of aging. So we need to make sure that people are getting at least a gram of protein for every pound of body weight. All right. So that's a lot of protein. So how do you time that? So remember, protein is really what you're getting with protein is these essential amino acids. And those are the building blocks for protein. And each of them has different functions. Leucine is an mTOR stimulator. And then you have the best peptides for joint health that we recommend a lot are BPC 157. So that's body protective compound 157. And a lot of times we'll use that in combination with thymosin beta 4. Those are healing recovery peptides. And then lots of times we'll use GHK copper, which improves collagen function, and the growth hormone secretagogues. So those are sort of our go-tos for orthopedic injuries. You can also, for knees, inject a peptide called AOD 9064. That can be injected into the joint. And that's a growth hormone fragment that can induce healing. So you can use that combined with a high molecular rate hyaluronide. Well, Anthony, if you've listened to anything I've talked about, I am not an NAD fan. If you really understand cellular health, doing subcutaneous NAD, aside from maybe trying to recover from an illness, doing it for a very short course, probably starts disrupting the redox in your cell, this delicate balance of reduction and oxidation. If you start feeding in a reducing agent continuously, you start disrupting that. And what happens is you disturb what's called the NAD-NADH ratio. When that ratio gets disturbed, a whole lot of downstream effects happen. So how do you know if you've disturbed that ratio? You honestly don't. I think if you just got over a bad illness, for instance, maybe you need a little NAD, but it's not something you should be doing continuously or regularly. I see the Instagram posters, tons of doctors touting this. I will tell you, our cellular medicine group, who has really studied this at a cellular level, none are not a fan. We do know that when NAD is given extracellularly, which is how it gets to you when you give it IV or sub-Q. When you give it extracellularly, it actually, when it changes these ratios, it down regulates a protein called P53, which is critical for fighting cancer. So you're leading to increased risks of cancer. You also will start, those guys who don't know about GHK copper, it's a peptide. It's what's called a copper tripeptide. So it's a short amino acid chain that naturally is made by our body. It's associated with huge amounts of regenerative processes and healing in the body. So it's really beneficial. It modifies positively at least 500 genes. Considered an anti-aging peptide because it really seems to facilitate all types of tissue remodeling and repair. So it plays a really crucial role in our ability to heal. So GHK itself, that peptide, has a very strong affinity to copper, and it needs copper to activate it. I love low-dose lactulose. So lactulose used to be used in the hospital for chronic constipation or for liver failure, and still is, at a very low dose, like a teaspoon a day. What it does is it enhances absorption of minerals such as calcium and iron and magnesium from the gut, and that's really important for brain health. So we know that absorption of those minerals, which are sometimes very difficult to absorb, are super critical to brain health. Clinical evidence published to date shows that low-dose lactulose stimulates health-promoting bacteria. So it acts as a prebiotic. So it stimulates that healthy microbiome, at the same time inhibiting the growth of the pathogenic bacteria. So it's increasing beneficial metabolites, inhibiting bad bacteria, helping good bacteria, improving mineral absorption. And overall, every now and then I get somebody who gets diarrhea from it. Most people tolerate a teaspoon very well. If you get diarrhea, just back the dose down a little bit. It's kind of my go-to prebiotic, probiotic. We use whole protocols pre and post surgery for our clients. So peptides are not only safe, but very beneficial pre and post surgery. So we have a whole protocol we use that sort of preps people for surgery, because surgery is not benign. It has a big effect on the brain with surgery. So anesthesia has a big effect on the brain. It takes a toll to recover. So we know that it's very important to get the body and the brain prepped for surgery, both before and after. Mitochondrial coupling is pretty interesting. And I see in the question and answer session, somebody asked about the latest developments with what's called BAM15. And BAM15 is a mitochondrial uncoupler. So our body can produce a protein. It's called a mitochondrial uncoupler. So if our mitochondria feel like there's too much energy coming in, right? I have too much energy coming in. It just starts uncoupling the energy production from going out there and doing anything, making ATP, right? So if I eat too much, for instance, and I start having too much energy production, then that excess energy turns into fat and damages my liver and things like that. So if I can now, instead of that extra energy becoming ATP, just throw it away, uncouple it, trash it, just get rid of it and not make ATP, you see people not be able to get fat even when they overeat. Or at least mice not be able to get fat when they overeat. So mitochondrial uncouplers have raised a lot of interest in the weight loss world. And actually, the first one came out in the 1930s. It was called 2,4-DNP. And it was a really powerful and effective weight loss pill, but it was really quickly withdrawn from market because they had a whole bunch of people die. So people had hyperthermia and they had death. So they pulled it off the market. But now we're looking at newer, better mitochondrial uncouplers. Remember, we make mitochondrial uncouplers. So we